I'm sorry.
No worries. You're here now. Perfect timing. Perfect timing. So Karen, why don't you give us a little intro? I told everyone a little bit about Britt. Why don't you give us a little intro, and then we'll get rocking and rolling here. Britt, I'm glad you're here. You know, we should have asked Lila if she knew how to do something. Tell us she would have.
Well, it was actually Everly, and she's turning around and what did you say? She's like, Dad, it's da-da-da-da. And I'm just like, unbelievable. That's why God made Eve.
There you go.
Well,
I love
way more reasons than that, but Adam was a mess, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, there's a few people that agree with you here. Now, all right, well, let's get started. Well, welcome everybody to another episode of the Health Made Simple show. We have an awesome guest tonight, but before I introduce him, I want to introduce our host, Dr. Bart Precourt, who has been a healthcare provider for over 20 years, practicing a range of modalities, including chiropractic, acupuncture, kinesiology, nutrition and supplementation, and functional testing out of his clinic, Balance Health Studio in Seagrove Beach, Florida. He's also the founder of the Health Edge program, which is a cutting edge online health program for entrepreneurs and executives wanting to take their health to the next level. He works with athletes and celebrities all around the world. And so we are always excited to hear his Health Made Simple tips every week right here on the show. And today we have Britt Colquitt, who is a 12-year veteran of the NFL and currently a punter for the Minnesota Vikings. He has a Super Bowl ring from his time with the Denver Broncos, and he's also a loving husband and father of 4 kids. And from what I hear, Britton, you're not just an accomplished athlete, but an amazing human being. So we are really excited to have you here today.
Wow, thank you so much.
So Brett, just for starters here, so Karen's from Australia, so she doesn't the whole football thing. So I had to give her the right words to use. So if she throws them off a little bit, just kind of give her a pass.
I'm going to need a pass. We have Australian rules football here rather than NFL. It's a little bit different.
I know you guys pass with your feet, so I'm into that. That's cool.
Yeah, you could complain.
I know. That's my plan after football in the NFL is to maybe come be one of those old guys on an Aussie team.
Sounds good. Come on down.
Let's go.
All right, so let's dive in a little bit. So thanks, of course, brother, for being here. I get a bunch of questions, and I know our peeps will have questions for you. So we're live here. We're also live on Facebook, and then it goes live to iTunes and all that fun stuff as well. So we'll get your message out even farther here today. So I get one of my first questions that I just want to ask, and everyone probably wants to ask is, so many people as a young guy and girls too now, you dream about one day being a professional athlete. Did you have that dream as a little kid?
I did. So, as you know, and some people know, my dad punted in the NFL as well. He played for the Steelers. So one of the rooms in our house was just, black and gold and had Super Bowl stuff because 2 of his years he won the Super Bowl. He tells a story every year or anytime he speaks to people that I came up to him and tugged on his shirt one day because earlier that day he had told Dustin and I that when he dies, we get one of his rings. And he always tells the story that I tugged on his shirt and I looked up and I asked him when he was going to die. So that's his favorite story. But so it was just normal to me. It was just completely normal. A lot like someone who's a doctor, has a doctor as a father or a mother and goes into that same field. And so it was just normal for me. And I think at the time, I didn't necessarily think I was going to just be the least athletic on the field punter. I thought I might play receiver or do something really cool, which is where Nash, my 8-year-old's at right now. He's like, Dad, I'm going to play receiver or free safety. And I'm like, okay, just know how to kick. But, so yeah, I did have that dream. And I think honestly, for me, the biggest part of why I'm here besides, there's a lot of reasons that I'm here, but one of the biggest inside my head was that I just thought it was normal and I believed it could be true. Whereas if you really think about it and you step back and you look at the numbers, it's just crazy to be able to get to this point.
You're not kidding. It's crazy. Like, so really, we could have just ended this entire podcast on that you just believed it to be true and it worked. Like that message by itself, brother, like that's huge, like, because that's half of life right there. Just what we focus on, what we focus on expands in life. And that happens all the time. So I want to go just a little farther for our audience, because Britton's dad was a punter in the NFL, won 2 Super Bowls. So like being in the NFL is one thing. The majority, probably 95% of the players that are ever in the NFL are never going to have a Super Bowl ring. I don't know the stat, but it's going to be high like that. Your dad has 2. And
Yep.
you brother that is in the NFL. And last year he got a Super Bowl ring. And then you're in the NFL and you have a Super Bowl ring. So those statistically, I don't even know if it's ever occurred in the NFL. Maybe, but I doubt it. To have 3 family members all with Super Bowl rings. So that by itself, brother, I think that's it's incredible. Like that's just something like that happens. All right. So let's look at this. So I want to acknowledge you for the fact that you've been in the NFL for 12 years. Is that correct? This is 12th year, right?
Yeah, this is coming up on 12. Yep.
12 years, which and for people to understand that it's huge. Like that, I mean, that doesn't sound like a long career, but the average NFL career is 3.3 years. So you're, I know you're a young guy, but you're like a dinosaur.
It's true. No.
Yeah, like prehistoric dinosaur. So
yeah.
Talk to me a little about like that. Like obviously preparation is huge, and you know me, we've got to know each other a little bit, and we're always talking about preparation. But when in your brain, or when did you start thinking about preparing in such a way that you could have a lengthy career?
It's like it's a lot like kids. You go to a kid's practice, and honestly, right now when I see kids at practice, when the coach has them stretching, I'm like, kids don't need to stretch. What are they doing? Just get on into it. And kids know that they don't ever get injured. You look at kids, you're like, God, if that happened to me, I would tear my ACL. And so that's kind of how I was early in my years in the NFL. I didn't do as much, but yet I had lower back issues and I had little nagging things. And then all of a sudden, if I would do an actual football move, because all I knew was kick, and that's so very one-sided, which working with a guy like you and other chiropractors back in Denver and people that knew the body and learning the body head to toe, and the cross, however you say it. How do you say it? The
patterns. That's good.
Yeah, the cross pattern. Sorry, I'm okay. And understanding that hey, I got this shoulder that always gave me trouble, and I had surgery on it back in high school, and that could somehow affect my right hip or my right knee and things like that. And understanding that from getting knowledge from you really changed a lot of things. And so all of a sudden I'm going, man, I'm pretty young and I'm having all these aches and pains, but I'm getting by, but it's cool. I haven't had too many injuries. But then I look over and I see my brother, who is getting older in years as well. He was younger then, but he was older than me. And all of a sudden he, runs down the field and makes a tackle, right? He does something that he doesn't normally do. And at the time, Dustin was kind of one of those, hey, you don't need to do that much in the gym. You just kick and do what you need to do for that part of your body. And he gets injured making a tackle. And so I start to be like, whoa, okay, so you're telling me if I have to do something that my body's not used to doing, there's a chance that I can get injured. And I started seeing that more in other kickers and punters. They would start running and all of a sudden they're pulling up limping. And I'm like, I don't want to be that guy. And I started to realize through guys like you, knowing my body and knowing that it needs to be holistic, head to toe, mind, body, spirituality, but the way I eat, the way I drink, the way I sleep, and all these things are important, and they all are connected. And man, there's so much more to talk about here in this little area that I don't know if you want me to pause and keep going, or you chime in, or
let me chime in a little bit there, because that message, that's a message as a professional athlete, or literally as just a professional dad or a mom, or any one of us, quite frankly, that message needs to be here loud and clear. And I think in a year like this, where we've had COVID, where like we do one thing out of the abnormal and all of a sudden throws everything off. We're like, if we see it coming and we can prepare, you know, that's half of it. You know, awareness and health is like the critical part of it. So, you know, I think that's, you know, me, I think I met your brother shortly before you, and
Yeah.
he too. And correct me if I'm wrong, but 14 years in the NFL, correct?
So he did 15 in Kansas City, and then this year was his 16th. That he kind of bounced around a little bit, and then ended up signing back with Kansas City. But yeah, 16.
Yeah. So again, like that was always very impressive to me, that, you know, I've seen a lot of, you know, players, a lot of athletes come and go, and for you guys to see that, but then seeing you guys it made sense to me. Like, you guys sought me out, or wherever you go. Cause I remember you telling me you had a chiropractor in Denver. I know you hooked up with some people when you were in Cleveland. So everywhere you went, you just like continue to try, you know, to prepare yourself. So let's break it down a little bit. So let's talk about those things for a moment. Let's talk about like chiropractic and body work. When you're in Denver, was that something that was supplied by your team? Like they had team trainers, team doctors, team chiropractors?
So yeah, and so here's the thing: all these teams, they have team guys like that, and some that I've had have been good, and some have been a little more basic, not as holistic as you. They might just be the crack the back, crack the neck type of guys. But I learned a long time ago in Denver. So here, this is a crazy thing. The team chiropractor way back in the Elway days was a guy named Nelson Vitanzi, and he's a lot older, and I don't know the exact story, but he learned chiropractic from one of the original chiropractic guys in our country. So this guy is what we call a witch doctor, one of those guys that you walk in the room and he asks you questions, but he's not even listening to what you're saying, because he's like studying your body and he already knows what's going on. Or he like says something like, "Are you pregnant?" to Nikki. And then she's just like, "What?" You know what I mean? So he was not the team doctor anymore, but everybody still went to him. You get to Denver and it was like, you got to go to Dr. V. So I learned a lot from him, and he had a practice that he had a muscle guy and a couple other things. That's when I learned, oh yeah, I knew that getting adjusted was good, but that's when I learned that having your muscles go along with that is going to hold everything in place. And that's why I love what you do, is because you're doing some muscle activation stuff, and it's neurological stuff, and there's all these things. It's not just crack your neck and just walk out the door, because your body's going to pull itself right back to where it was, right? Yeah. And then I also learned through that time period, and you've helped me with that as well on some exercises, and I'm sure we'll talk about that in a little bit, but strengthening other parts of my body. So right now with me, my right quad is super strong, and my left hamstring is really strong. And I learned that from a guy in Tennessee, Paul Kelly, who's a chiropractic guy, but also does muscle. He was did some bodybuilding back in the day, but I learned sort of the cross pattern from him, a little bit of it. And so I learned that, okay, I can't just go into the gym and keep doing this, my kicking leg. I got to work the quad on my left side and the hamstring of my right, but also stay flexible and things like that. And all these things that I've learned with the core and all those things have helped me to stay away from injury and just stay away from the aches and pains. So I'm not even sure. But
so, and I could be wrong here. We never actually had this discussion, but I was trying to do some homework on you. And like I was like, was that called like Google stalking or something like that? I think that's what I was doing. Is this true? Have you never missed a day of work? Like, have you never missed a game?
Never missed a game.
Yeah, that's crazy, dude. That's yeah. So I man, I don't know many people who haven't missed a day of work in 12 years. So obviously whatever you're doing is working, and it's yeah. So it's and the reason I wanted to like kind of talk to our audience and everything about that is that often what we focus on we get, and seeing your approach now, and obviously I didn't know you early in your career, but seeing your approach now, it's not reactive, it's definitely pro-reactive. And that is a message when we're talking about health, whether it be to be an athlete or to be a great mom or a great dad or whatever it may be, that we are now in proactive or good luck. That's really where we stand right now in culture, where if you just wait, I call it follower Fred disease, where follower Fred just follows. And, it's unfortunately, he just waits. And when people say, this is what happened to you, he says, okay, where we have so much more, we have so much more availability to participate in that. So, all right. So 12 years in, never misses a day of work. Any pre-game rituals? Do you have a routine? So let's dive, or any routine for that matter. Do you have a workout routine? Let's talk routine. I love routines. I think, for me, if you can, one of my simple ones, if you can win the morning, you win the day every day. I think you should move your body. My dogs are fighting in the background here. I think
Mine are about to be.
Yeah. I think if you move, you meditate, you pray in the morning. I think if you start your day that way, you got the absolute best chance at winning that day. Do you have anything in your life right now that you use as a ritual, whether it be morning, afternoon, pregame rituals, anything like that?
Yeah. So, if I don't wake up and immediately just casually, as if he's right next to me, because he is, and we're all his children, just talk to God, say a prayer, like you said, my day just, you might fast forward a couple hours. I'm like, man, I've been a little nastier to my kids. I've been things like that. My attitude's just not where it should be. So I really try to be in prayer as short as it may be. I would love for it to be a little more time and maybe even some reading with the kids. It's kind of crazy. So I try to do a morning thing with them where they're included, and with Nikki. Of course, during the season, I'm driving to work. I kind of got to wake up and get out of there. Usually no one's up, or maybe one or two are up. And of course, coffee is a big part of it. That's a given. But I'm driving to work, and I'll usually listen to maybe like a morning devotional or something like that, where I get an email from Our Daily Bread or something like that. So that's huge for me, being a believer. And, I tell my kids that, to have a relationship with God, it's just like any relationship. Like if you don't talk to your friend, that's no relationship. You know what I mean? So, and it's hard and explaining it to kids, because they're like, but you can't see him, you can't hear him. And it's just a hard thing. I'm like, yeah, I'm still grasping the whole thing too. But when Jesus died, the veil was torn, the separation between God and man, and he wanted that relationship to be open for us to talk to him. So I would encourage anybody who is not there to just speak and ask him to speak and open your ears. That's kind of maybe even the more important thing, to open your ears and just kind of hear from him. But he does want the best for us. You can't always justify or explain the circumstances or things like that, but he loves us all, and he loves you guys and everything. So I would encourage you there. But so that's the most important thing for me. Drinking water right away and just kind of getting that ball rolling, and just my nutrition is huge. I eat very clean as I can. As clean as my kids will let me, you know what I mean? When they're trying to throw sugar in front of my face. So that's been a huge thing. And kind of going back to the earlier years in the NFL, where I was kind of like, well, I don't need to do that much. I'm just the young guy. Like, I can just get up and go kick, and then it'll work out. I kind of ate whatever too, you know what I mean? And I still looked all right and all that. But yeah, when I look back on pictures, like I didn't look as in shape as I should have, looked. Not that looks matters and all that kind of stuff, but then I definitely look back and I didn't feel as good as I feel now. So diet is a huge thing. And I just feel, I tell everybody this, but it's really true. I feel better than I did my first year in the league, not just aches and pains. I feel more energy. It takes a minute. It takes the coffee. And I'll get to the bedtime and all the kids and everybody goes to bed, and I'm just like, let's go. Mm-hmm. And when alcohol was involved, that was a bad thing for me. But I've been free of that for almost 4 years this June. So that's another thing. And I know we've talked about that, and we can talk about that too. So that's been another thing that's just a game changer, a life changer. And so those are just kind of the spiritual and physical probably things that we could talk about with all that leading into work. And then we can get into, and I could just keep going, but all the stuff I do for my body once I'm at work.
Let's talk for a minute. So I'm glad you brought up the nutrition, because obviously that's huge. And I think what you're talking about is so real, where same thing for me when I was younger, even when I was in chiropractic school and I was like, a doctor for that matter, you kind of got what, you did almost what you get away with.
Right.
And then at some point you go, what if I want to do this for a long period of time? Or you feel it start to catch up with you a little bit. And just so our audience knows, Britt downplayed his like athletic abilities. Britt, what are you, about 6'3", 220, about 10% body fat? Yeah. So you can't downplay that as like the slob on the field, because that's not quite the situation. And even like, and it's kind of funny where we called you, the old man in the league at 36 years old. Are you 36 yet?
In March.
In March. All right. So 35 still. So it's far from me, and we'll talk about if you think how long your career will go. When you think about, I think one of the oldest guys in the league right now is Tom Brady. Is he not like 43? And he still might be the best player in the league, arguably. And he's probably the healthiest guy in the league. And there's definitely a correlation on many levels. Let's talk nutrition more, but let's dive a little bit into your supplements. And I want to, if I can share a little bit about some of the things I know you do, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So it's kind of funny. So Britt doesn't mind. So this is my point here. So I know for you, what you want to do is perform at your highest. And then in between there, I know there's no excuses.
Right.
And that's always really interesting, because whether you're trying to, like a young man growing up and trying to be a professional athlete, or you're just trying to be super healthy right now, the gap is usually filled for many with excuses. So oftentimes, for example, I grew up an athlete, by no chance was I ever going to be professional in anything. And my mom made it clear that go have fun with your sports, but make sure you get really good at something else. And that was nice. But I did have some friends that made it to be professional athletes, and their work ethic was different than the rest of ours. That was the truth. They stayed to practice as long, and they worked harder. Fast forwarded to where I am, for me now in, practicing, and trying to help people get healthy. A lot of people say this is what they want. They want to be a professional when it comes to being healthy, but there's a gap, and the gap is often filled with excuses. And I'm bringing that up because for you, we concoct, because I know you and the needs specifically for your body, we concoct for you a lot of herbal remedies. And you might say that some of them don't taste good. Is that
taste good? Is that what you said?
So some of them don't taste good.
They don't, but I don't know. I'm kind of getting used to them. Yeah, some of them taste kind of terrible, but I've always been the type that, with protein shakes, I'll give Nikki a protein shake and she's like, ugh. And I'm like, that's incredible. It tastes incredible, because I know what it is. You know what I mean? And so I know what it is you're giving me. And I give it one of those, and it's like back when I used to do that with a shot of whiskey, but you still took it, didn't you? You know what I mean? So this is my new whiskey. I don't have to do that anymore, but sorry, go ahead.
That's exactly the point I wanted to make. So I'm hoping everyone just listened to that, because listen, we torture ourselves sometimes with literally a shot of whiskey or a shot of Jägermeister, and it's awful. But sometimes when it comes to drinking some of the world's greatest herbs, that could be they bite a little bit, but we refuse some of those things that bring us up. So that was another great point. We could just quit there, and this is a great win. All right. So let's back up a little bit. You mentioned alcohol. I know you don't drink anymore, but I think there's something behind that. And listen, and Karen and I every now and then have talked, about alcohol, and my approach is always just whatever serves you, quite frankly. just whatever serves you in your life, wherever you're at. I don't drink. Probably haven't drank. I don't even know. I'm going to just, there was never like a line I drew. I don't, it doesn't serve me in my life. Tell me about it. Tell me about like, why doesn't, you're a football player, right? Isn't that what, big guys do? They drink beer and, do that kind of stuff. Why don't you drink alcohol anymore?
Yeah. I mean, I was all about it in the earlier years, but, there's a lot of reasons. And, for me, I love how you said that, because I've never really thought of a word for that, but it doesn't serve me. And it never has. People, if they want to, they can look me up. And if you get far enough back, I got into some trouble in college, and it was drinking related. And I got so many chances that it was just like, man, how many chances is this guy going to get? The team chaplain at Tennessee, who I met with as well, I was kind of living the double life. I was getting drunk, but I was also, Jimmy Buffett said it in one of his songs, there's a thin line between Saturday night and Sunday morning. And I was trying to walk that line. And I'm not saying that you can't have a spiritual relationship and drink. I mean, Jesus had wine in the Bible. The Pharisees called him a drunkard, things like that. That's not what it's about. It's not about that. But like, I love how you said that. Does it serve you? Our team chaplain was always like, he called me Brain Dead. That was my nickname. He's now the team chaplain for the Titans. But he would always say, man, I don't know why. He was like, but God just loves you so much, because everything you do, you get caught. Like if I skipped a class, I got caught. Or if I got in trouble with alcohol or anything like that, I got caught. And you know what? And he was just like, I would be more worried if God didn't allow that to happen, because obviously he likes you and he's trying to wake you up and he has a reason for you and a purpose for you. And I was missing that purpose. I was missing that calling by living selfishly and doing that. And I think there's a lot of other things you can do aside from alcohol to miss your calling in life and to miss your perfect. It's not just like, oh, you're drinking, so you can't do this. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of other things we can do in our life that distract us and take us away from our purpose. And a lot of the things are right there in front of our face and in our fingertips. That's not going to be my thing because I can't even get on a Zoom call. So that technology is not going to be the distraction for me. But anyway, so God sent a woman in my life, Nikki Harrell. I hesitate on her name because her name is Kelly Nicole, and her parents gave her a nickname of her middle name. So I was like, how do I say this? Because anyway, so Kelly Nicole Harrell, and she was not a big drinker. She hung out in college and she did the thing with her friends and they drank, and she would have a glass of wine, but literally, I don't know if I've ever seen her finish a glass of alcohol of any type. She just doesn't care for it. It's just like, if it tastes really good, she might, but she doesn't like the feeling of having a buzz, and she just isn't big on alcohol. And it was just like, okay, because I love it. You know what I mean? I was like, okay, God, what are you doing here? And it worked for a while. And then all of a sudden the kids started coming. And then all of a sudden it started having an issue with us, and it was making problems in our marriage. And then all of a sudden I look back and I wasn't as present as I could have been, or I don't remember the things that I would have loved to remember. I remember a lot more about, Nash's young childhood than I do Everly's, because that was a time maybe where I was drinking a little more, and it's just like, dang, that was heavy. That's heavy. I feel emotional right now just thinking about it. And memory is already a tough enough thing when you're aging anyway, but that just took more of it away. And then just things were kind of blurred out. Not that I was like walking around stumbling, but when you do it every night, the next day is just a little more fuzzy. So all these things kind of compiled and came together. And eventually Nikki and I came to a point a few years ago when we were in Cleveland. It was just like, we got to stop. And we said we, and she said we, because it was affecting her. It was affecting my family, and it was all of us together. And around the same time, it kind of came out that my dad had developed alcoholism. And we never knew that growing up. And maybe it didn't fully show its head until around that time with me. But when Nikki and I actually got married, he was going to a place to get help. You know what I mean? So, but I never felt like I had an addiction. So I was just like, man, I hate that for dad. And I just went along the whole social thing and let it happen. But I imagine after looking back now that dad was probably like me at this age. And then you fast forward and your kids are teenagers and all of a sudden your kids go off to college, and then it develops because then you're with your wife at home that maybe you didn't have the relationship that you could have because the kids and running around and doing all that. And then all of a sudden the alcohol creeps back in and becomes a real thing. So I definitely think that was kind of where my life could have been going. So that was just something that we just had to say, we're done with it. And I can't just be semi done with it. I can't just have a glass of wine over there, because then I know I've done that before a little bit too, where I was like, it'd been like 6 months and then I'm like, oh, I'm grilling outside, I'll have a beer. And then that tasted pretty good. And the next night I grilled and I had 2. And then fast forward 2 weeks later and I was just back in the normal swing of things.
Yeah. Thanks for just kind of sharing that, because I think it's one of those things where it goes to show how important tribe and family is, no doubt, because that is a we issue. And it's not just a me issue or you issue. And it's one of those things where like, there's so many things like that can be in our lives that are right in front of us that we don't see it until we step back, and almost like you have to have a voice that, I'm sure literally it was God talking to you, being like, dude, you can't hear me today. You can't hear me because you can't hear me,
Totally.
And that's, and it's one of those things. And then one day you're awake and be like, well, what happened last week? I don't know. You couldn't hear me. And it's just that thing that it's like right in front of us. And I think there's so many things that could be in our lives, maybe alcohol for some of us, et cetera, that it's right there, but so fixable and so easy to overcome, and to continue to have these, our lives leveling up on a regular basis there. So you brought up your wife, and I got the chance to meet Nikki, and she's an amazing woman, no doubt. And then I got the chance to meet all your little munchkins, which I love them. One of the things I love about you, that every time I see you, I've never seen you without one of your kids. So like, which I truly, truly love, because it's just like, that's how I feel. Like no one sees me without a dog. Like yeah. And then, and it's pick a day, which one I have, like, who knows? Like, and who knows?
Right.
Lila, whatever. So maybe. So I love that. And I love that family approach that you have. And it's so authentic. So let's talk a little about that. So I almost like to think of it as when you're on a football team, that's a family, no doubt. Because you've had an opportunity to be on, and we're going to come back to Nikki and the kids in just a moment, but in the sports world, how important is that tribe? Like, how important is that family feel in the locker room? And was it different from team to team? You had an opportunity to be on a spectacular team in Denver, that was like considered one of the better teams out there. Then you were on this, like, from my perspective, at least, this young gun team in Cleveland. And then you're on kind of like a middle of the road team, an up and coming team in Minnesota. How important is tribe? Does it exist on that level?
It does. Free agency and salary cap and things like that, where they just say, hey, this guy's too expensive, or this guy's getting older and we're getting rid of him. That hurts things. But if you look at teams that make it all the way or make it the long haul, there's something different about them. And there's usually a leader. Oftentimes it's not a young, first round, just drafted quarterback. No offense to that, but there's a reason for that too. When we were in Denver, Peyton Manning was the guy. Obviously he's arguably the best of all time. But he made that team his family, and you need a leader like that for that to even happen. Or there can be several guys like that. When I first got on to the Broncos, Brian Dawkins was one of those guys. And it was just like, when that guy's in the locker room, you always kind of like sort of kept an eye on him and kept an ear on him, because for one, you didn't want to get like eaten or whatever he would do to you, but he wouldn't, because he was just like the kindest guy ever. But you didn't know, you just like, was greatness. It was, you wanted to see what he did. You wanted to see how this 30-something-year-old guy was completely shredded and probably barely missed any games and never said a cuss word. And not that that matters, but like, he was just pure, you know what I mean? So guys like that, you wanted to see what they would do. You wanted to emulate them a little bit. You wanted to not have him see you mess up. You know what I mean? So there was like this accountability, and that's how it was with Peyton. You know, when Peyton walks in a room, everybody knows he's in that room, not just because he's such a tall guy and he's just very recognizable. But you know, you want to be a part of it. You want to impress him almost. You just want to be like remembered by him, which one thing about him, if anybody gets a chance to meet Peyton and you tell him your name, he will remember that name. He's one of the most impressive guys ever. I've heard stories from people, and I obviously saw it in person, but like guys would be like, yeah, I met him like 4 years ago and he saw me and he's like, Jake? And you're just like, what? And it was like a one-time meeting. So he's just an incredible guy. And what you see on TV is what you get. He's funny. Another reason you're always kind of watching and things like that is just like everything he does is timely. You know, he is a comedian. Whereas like I'm trying to be funny all the time, or maybe it's like the wrong time, the wrong place at the wrong time, but I'm just trying to keep it light and have everybody in a cheerful mood. So I don't think, you know, anybody hates me for it. But if it was time to be serious, it was time to be serious for Peyton. If it was time to joke, it was time to joke. Everything was like scripted. It was as if he had a playbook for the whole day, just like he knew the playbook that he was throwing from. Or what's funny is he would ask questions in a meeting that he knew the answer to. He would ask a coach a question just so the coach would answer it. And probably he wanted to test to make sure the coach knew, but he also wanted other people to know the answer. So he wasn't just the only one telling him. Does that make sense? I mean, he was like the ultimate father figure in the locker room. So to answer your question, I mean, it is important. And then, you know, like you go to Cleveland and it's just a bunch of young guys that they're trying to throw together that have all these high numbers and talent. And they tried to do like this Moneyball thing, and that wasn't going. Eventually they got some smarts and got some older vets in there and things like that. And like you said, with Minnesota, we got a lot of the keys to the puzzle, and a guy like Kirk Cousins being a believer, being positive, being fun, being funny, bringing guys in is a big virtue to have. So I think we're on the right path there. But yeah, it's huge to have success as a team. You can't really find many teams that made it. I mean, like Tom Brady right now, he's Tom Brady, you know what I mean? And then like people want to talk about Belichick. If you like Belichick, sorry, but I'm not the biggest fan, but they're not really having much success without Tom. So he brings them together, you know what I mean? And they put together a team in Tampa. It might be a first-year team, but they put together a team that believes in each other. They got talent, but they believe in each other. And it's not all about talent. There's all-star teams that don't make it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know, I love a couple of things you said there, you know, like accountability, huge, you know, that's what, you know, literally, you know, even as, you know, in the health world, or, you know, as we see each other holding each other accountable for being the best versions of ourselves and leveling up our health and not having excuses. It's, you know, it's so huge. And having accountability partners is something I think is often lacked. And I know as men, often we don't give people the opportunity. I shouldn't say men, like I think all of us, there's not many people that literally are holding us accountable for being the best version of ourselves on a regular basis. And I think that's where having faith and having people, or what I call a tribe, we create a lot of, like, the people listening here tonight, this is our tribe. So they're thinking like you're thinking, they get you, like they're like, you know, they're on page with everything we're talking about. And having a tribe like that, I think it elevates, it takes the individual, like you get a bunch of group of decent individuals, or they're really great, but they're playing at a decent level. And then that tribe can take it to the next level in the event that you have good leaders. You know, and I think the thing about leadership is that if we all imagined we were the leader, that we are all Peyton Manning, and we all were Tom Brady, and for you, like whether you realize it or not, you're that dude now. Like walking in the locker room at 12 years in the game, they're like, how did he get here 12 years later? Like, how does that happen? You know, and, you know, and our friend Jason Witten, same thing, you know, having someone that chooses to step up and lead is massively, massively important. And I encourage everyone listening today, don't wait for a leader to show up. Like, be the leader, like be that
Right.
in school and any part of your life here. So let's go back a little bit to probably the most important tribe, and that's your family tribe. So, I think about, and especially because I've got to know you guys, and I have a lot of athletes that I take care of, and it's not all glamour, the schedule. It's, quite frankly, it looks hard to me. You're moving, you're flying, you're traveling every week, and you're living out of suitcases, is my guess. And it's not always convenient, is my guess, to have that strong, solid place to go back to. Talk about that, because everything isn't convenient in life. There's sacrifices, there's challenges that we overcome. So how do you stay so grounded and so focused, even though, quite frankly, I can imagine your schedule's pretty tough, like the travel?
Yeah. So, I mean, thankfully it's just about 6 months out of the year, and the off season's incredible. You know what I mean? So you kind of get a chance there. That's why I'm a stay-at-home dad in the off season, and Nikki's just like on vacation. Not really, but she's just like, she gets spoiled for sure when I'm here. And that's why I'm bringing them to you. And, part of me, I want to be with my kids, obviously. And a couple of them are ride or dies. You know what I mean? Like, if somebody's leaving, they're going, no matter where you're going. I'm going to the dump. Okay, I'm coming with you. I'm taking trash. Why are you coming with me? Anyway, but I'm trying to give Nikki a break too, So this is kind of my time to catch up and kind of give back to her and serve her a little bit, because like you said, when I'm gone during the week, during the season, it's hard. And with 4 kids that are all under 8, she has a heavy workload. And the fact that we've been several places in the semi-small amount of time for a normal job, we haven't been able to put down roots and have all these friends, or have normal babysitters, or somebody who could help her out, or she happens to love the house being very tidy. So one of the things that can bring her the most joy or the most anguish is the house being picked up or it being a mess. And like, with 4 kids, and Isla, she's our 5-year-old, and she changes like 6 or 7 times a day. And these outfits aren't just like a shirt and shorts. It's like stockings, socks, bloomers. I don't even know what that was. It's like little shorts that are like the same look as the dress, sort of. Okay. I don't know. They're kind of under something. And then, so there's like all these pieces and everything's inside out. That's the worst. I'm like, guys, can you just turn it outside out? Because I'm fitting my arm down in your little arm, and I'm like pulling it out, and it doubles the time of doing laundry. So anyway, all those things she has to put up with, and with kids, and it can just overwhelm you, especially with me not around. So she's awesome, and God's just really blessed us. We're so blessed to have those 4 kids, and they are a ton of fun, and they're incredible humans. Their minds are bright, they're funny, they look you in the eye, they care about people. So we're so blessed there. It's a lot of work, and we prayed for patience. Probably I prayed for patience before having kids, and I shouldn't have, because when you pray for something, God's gonna answer in a way that, hey, how do you get patience? Well, you got to learn it the hard way. So but it's just been a blessing, and it is a crazy schedule. And, we're gone on the weekends. It's not as bad as like basketball and baseball. Those I couldn't even imagine. And with my position, I at least get to come home a little earlier than some of those guys that are putting in hours a lot later. I kind of do my thing, and I'm able to get out a little earlier. So that's a blessing too. And probably one of the reasons I've been doing it for as long as I have, because I'm able to detach a little bit, and I don't have to memorize, a giant playbook. So that helps too.
Yeah. So, speaking of like that spot in your position here, the unique thing. So for my football people that are watching that don't know football, Britt punts. So you can be sitting there, and then boom, it's game time for you. And
sorry.
Worse. And then the moment that happens, you basically have, about 9 or 10 players that are all screaming down your throat, rushing to try to get you in the ball that you're about to kick. So you have this so you're like, your job, it goes from like 0 to like 100. And, light moment here. How do you block all that out? Because that's an art. That's an art where a lot of people that probably have the talent that you do, but if you can't block that moment out, because literally you're in a storm in that moment, what we got any keys or tricks to helping you in that moment?
Yeah, it's really weird. It's kind of in every season that starts, you know, I realized this year that I actually need the preseason. And we talked about it, I think, with my body, but just, I got to kind of the first week and it was just like, maybe I wasn't able to block it out quite as much, or things didn't quite slow down as much as they would have. And then after a few games, it was like, okay, I was in the groove. So I think there's something to be said about getting into that part, because you can't imitate that. You can be in practice, you can have a punt team rushing at you, but it's practice. You're not in a stadium, albeit an empty stadium, which was crazy weird and a whole nother podcast. But it's still the other team coming at you, and they're not, you know, our team is told, hey, if you get through and you could block the punt, you better not hit our punter because we only have one of them. So these other guys don't care. So the game is totally different, right? So you can't imitate a game until you get to a game. For me, I would say the biggest thing, though, in blocking that out or whatever is not that I've just tried to block it out or learn that, but doing things so many times in the same way so many times. And it takes, even from back when I started punting in high school, or even learning from dad in the backyard, but really honed in on it my first year in college with the coach that I happened to have, or I'm sorry, in the NFL, doing things so many times that I developed a muscle memory of it. Mm-hmm. If you look at my technique, and I'm not trying to say this like bragging, but if you look at my technique, even if I catch a snap over here, if I catch a snap over here, if I jump, my steps are the exact same. And they always, now I might get a little long, and that's how you can miss a ball. Like, if you don't know anything about punting, the drop is everything, right? So what I learned from Mike Precourt, who's now in Cleveland, is my steps will determine kind of my drops. If you ever see a punter who's stepping like this, which you don't walk like that, right? You kind of walk here, right? So one of the things that we learned, and, you know, is like, I'll straddle a line. And so I'll do this thing called a line drill, and somebody snaps it to me. And my steps are that first right foot step, which is like my first big step. So I do like a jab, and then the first right foot step comes over that line. Does that make sense? So, and that's actually just walking. Now I'm not going like here, but I'm starting here. So jab, and then it's here, here. Now, if you watch me, if I punt right, I'm doing the same thing. And if I jump for a ball, I come down and I'm doing the same thing. But I've did it so many times that my muscle memory just takes over. So in a regular game, when there's not just like crazy adrenaline, I don't necessarily, maybe I wouldn't need it as much, but I've talked to you about this before, I think. But if you look back at the Super Bowl a couple of years ago that we won, it was like I'd come to the sideline and it was like I had like blacked out, and I didn't even remember being out there because of the magnitude of that game. And just the pressure on the outside, I literally ran out there and I was like, God, I cannot do this. And I know you can. And it wasn't just like, God, give me success, help me, you know, hit a bomb. It was just like, I need you. And God wants us to say, I need you. God knows that we need him, and we need to accept that we need him, and he wants to help us, but we have to say, I need you. And I say that with everything. It's not just, hey, I need you here because I was terrified. It's, God, I need you to help me to know how to love my kids the way they deserve to be loved, and my wife the way she deserves to be loved, and things like that. And that's a humbling thing, but there's freedom in that. And I've come into that freedom, and it's every day. It's not just back in the day I made this decision, and it's every day, and I need that every day. And I go to bed at night and I'm like, man, I messed up there. And then I'm like, but there's always tomorrow, you know. There's pain in the night, but joy comes in the morning. So in that Super Bowl game, I had the best game of my career. And it was just like, I would hit the ball and I would look up and it was just like, and I was just like, how? I had no idea how. So I do believe God was answering my prayers, but when I'm out there to punt, I'm not sitting there going, okay, catch it, take your jab, take your right, take your left, drop it, swing. I'm not saying that. You know, just like a tennis player that's running to hit the ball is not saying the form and all that, but they've done it so many times that it takes over. And so once the outside world happens or the crazy adrenaline hits or whatever, your muscle memory has taken over. And I've learned that you can kind of associate that with a lot of things in life, not just sports.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think in that easier, that discipline in the beginning. That
you tied. Wow, good job. Sorry, I'm surprised it's taken this long.
No, me too.
They've been really good.
Mr. Bart.
Hello.
Right. Sorry.
I love it. I love it. I don't even know where we were, but anyways, yeah, I think, you know, just that idea of it. And I think that if we so let's say we're not a professional athlete, we think about that in life, that we can tackle anything by doing it. And just doing it over and over again. And as simple as, I know it sounds odd, but as simple as just trying to eat right. You know, sometimes we like, oh, I can't believe that I'm going to do all this stuff to be healthy, or, you know, to get just do it once, then do it again, and then do it again tomorrow. Yeah. Better, you know, and I think that's really what you're speaking to. So, and then when you do need to pull on your faith, it's available for you. So you're not asking for a prayer for someone to do something for you, but just to do what you know how to do. All right. So, hey, Karen, you got any questions over there?
Well, we've got lots of people are loving this. We've got lots of comments. So thank you. Thanks so much, Britton, for sure. Well, we do have a question that we end every show on, because we like to make health simple on the show, the Health Made Simple show. And so that is, what is one action that our listeners can take right away to move them towards their goal of becoming superhuman? And for us, we talk about superhuman as being the best version of yourself.
So it's funny that Bart, you said this earlier. You said win the day. Mm-hmm. And there's a pastor in Washington, D.C., and we met him through Kirk Cousins, and his name's Mark Batterson, and he's done several books, but I'll show you his picture right here. You get 5 more free. Okay. But check this out.
Oh, no.
Nice.
Isn't that crazy? And I'm just getting started in it, honestly, because I've kind of let it get some dust on me and things like that. But some of the truths in here are what I've already been trying to do, and this has kind of put it into words and maybe added to it as well. But in order to win the day, you gotta bury dead yesterdays, is one of the ways he puts it. And I'm amazed the more I read this and the more I even think about it, like how much we're controlled by our past. And that goes back to the alcohol, and that goes back to all kinds of things. I mean, even if your relationship with your wife or anything like that, I mean, we got to forgive ourselves. We got to just let it be dead. It's not about like what happened. It's how you get up. And just like anything in sports, it's not how many times you fall down. It's how many times you get back up. But what can we do right now about yesterday? I can't do anything about it. I can learn from it. I can live from it. I can even change the way I have been affected from it, because none of us ever did the right thing the first time. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not sitting here saying like I buried all my yesterdays. I'm trying to do it every day. And I can maybe even look back and say like, okay, this has kind of affected me. Or maybe I need to ask, like, where is that affecting me? So that's something that I am currently with all you guys. If you want to join me, like I'm doing it right now. Like, I'm not saying like I did this like 10 years ago, so this is what I do. This is like me right now. So I'm trying to get rid of those, and then just live in the present is one of his other things. And it's funny. What's the Kung Fu Panda? You seen that with the Jack Black as the panda? I mean, it's really funny. You should You watch it with the dogs, but one of the sensei, the main sensei that's like this turtle, he says something about, you know, getting rid of the past, and he said live in the present, because the present it's called the present because it's a gift.
Mm.
So we need to live in that present moment. And what is that present moment for me? It's those two girls that are back there. It's Nikki and the boys that are going to come back here in a little bit from baseball. It's at the time in the off season, like, what am I doing still to keep my body and my mind and my spirit ready to play, to be a good husband, to be a good father. It's being present, you know what I mean? Which a lot of times we're around each other, but we're not present. And I think that is just a huge thing. If you can't become a better you if you're not present, either for yourself and for those around you. So those who have family and kids and a wife or a husband, be present, you know, and don't take today for granted. Another thing he talks about is, I don't have the exact verbiage that he uses, but not to worry about tomorrow. And I think that a lot of us, everybody worries about tomorrow. Who doesn't worry? How can you not worry? I mean, especially in what we're in right now and what's going on, what I feel like the outside world has made it like we're in, and I think making it even worse, what the media always kind of portrays to us to make us be in fear. I mean, and honestly, to go back to I'm almost done. To go back to my spiritual life, you know, if there's a God, then there's also the other side. And I believe that the devil wants to instill fear in our world and in our lives and in our minds and in our hearts. So we can't gain anything today about worrying about tomorrow. So tomorrow will take care of itself, and it'll come when it comes. But I just want to encourage all y'all to live for today, live for yourself and those around you, put others first, put God first. Good. And come see Bart in Florida, because he's going to make you feel good. One thing, Bart, I wanted to hit on real quick. We never hit on like the workout part and all that kind of stuff, but you said with my routine, the guys at work, not only when they discover that I'm as old as I am, because I'll maybe talk about the kids, they're like, you have kids? I'm like, yeah. They're like, how many? I'm like, 4. And these are like 21, 22-year-old kids. They're like, you have 4 kids? And they're like, how old are you? And I'm like, how old do you think I am? And they're like, 28, 30. And I'm like, 35. And they're like, that's just unheard of to them. I'm literally over a decade older than some of these kids. And then I'm like, yeah, but look at, you look close and you can see it. You know what I mean? Like, okay, you do have gray hair. I see it now. But they kind of give me a hard time because I'm in the gym or some kind of physical workout area in our building more than anybody there, because I know I need it. I'm not just trying to be like a gym rat and do buys and tries and, the gun show. Although we do have a gun show on Fridays that I make sure everybody hits up, and I have some tank tops that I make sure everybody wears. And they have to do it because I'm the oldest guy on the team. But I'm in there doing stuff that you taught me, that others have taught me, that know the body. My core now is stronger than it ever was in the beginning of my years. I start out every workout with really turning on my core muscles, my hips. I work on a lot of hip mobility, things that help me in running, but also help me just walk around and get out of bed. I even do some things in my routine when I'm getting out of bed. I'm like, okay, maybe usually there's a daughter ends up next to us, and we'll do like bicycles or, laying on my back, do like bridges or, do some Supermans on my stomach. So I'm always trying to do things that turn on engaging core muscles just to get my body ready for whatever it needs to do. So sorry, I know that was a little extra, but I just wanted to throw that in there, that there's always more that you can do, and everything you do, you can do to honor God.
Awesome, man. But thanks for those messages. I love to win the day, and you know, and I think I could hear that a million times to like let tomorrow be dead, like bury it, as a guy says, and not to worry about tomorrow, because really what we got is right here. So, I mean, I appreciate you coming on here. I think a lot of something that we should do. I think that we should give you our 7 dogs, and I take the 4 kids.
Okay.
And then we'll just see what happens. We'll just
I like that. Why not? It's like that show they used to do. What did they do? Like they did the wife swap.
Yeah, like wife swap.
Yes. Let's do it. Kids swap.
Yeah. Well, I think that would be. I think that would be an eye opener for us.
I don't know. I mean, who's going to tap out first? That's the big question. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Man, I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you coming here and, you know, being real and raw with us and just, you know, like coming from your heart. I knew that you'd show up and be an awesome man. And I hope everyone felt it today. And I'm sure that they will. I appreciate you. I'm looking forward to seeing you again through the season this year. And I think we'll do this again, you know.
Yeah.
We didn't even get into, but we're going to have to do this again because I have a bunch more questions and I bet my peeps will as well. So I want to say thanks for your time and I appreciate everyone's time. We're running a little later than we normally run, so I appreciate everyone sticking around. Thanks for your time, man. I appreciate you. Love your family and everything that you guys stand for. Keep doing your thing. And for everyone that's watching tonight, thanks. I appreciate you guys. Keep doing your thing. Keep sharing it out. Keep spreading love. You know, keep raising love for everyone. Obviously, we're going to take deliberate action for the mind, for the body, and your overall wellness. So y'all be awesome.
Thank you. God bless.